Are you suffering from a lack of engagement with your contact list, and maybe your messages are falling flat and just not getting the traction that they deserve? Are you seeing diminished returns from your marketing efforts? Well, it might be your list that needs a little bit of work. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how best to target your contacts and make sure that your list is working for you. Hey everyone, I'm Ian Campbell and I am CEO of Mission Suite, and I am out of my parents' basement. I am back in my standard digs here, my office, my studio, and it's nice to be back. Before we jump into today's video, though, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you're notified every time that we post new videos. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how best to target your contact list. Now, as I'm hoping that you know by now, having a great list is really only the first step to successful email campaigning or any sort of marketing campaigning. Once you have that list, you need to do some work with it to find out how to further use the information that you have to segment and best reach the contacts that are in there. This is something that we've talked about a whole lot over the course of the past year and a half that we've been running this channel here. So if you're still fuzzy on it, I would say go check it out. But at the end of the day, segmenting and list segmentation, all that sort of stuff, is really just the process of using the information that you have to break your list into smaller lists. Now, why smaller lists, you ask? Well, it's a great question. By breaking your list into smaller segments based on demographic information, you can best personalize and target those audiences. This will significantly increase your engagement within that segment. And if you want a pro tip, don't stop at demographic segmentation. Look at activity segmentation too, but more on that later. As a marketer or salesperson, you really need to get past the idea that every message is meant for every person. We have the information, we've got the tools to customize messages, so you should be using them. Before we get started here, I want to remind everyone that this is precisely what we're doing here at Mission Suite, right? This is exactly what it's made for. As a CRM solution, Mission Suite is the ideal tool to help you best segment your contacts and build an automated sales funnel that allows you to customize your messages to these audiences. So if you want more information, reach out to us, let me know. I'm happy to walk you through it. I'm sure that there are some of you watching this or listening to this and thinking to themselves, well, this is just going to be too expensive or it's too complicated. Well, it doesn't have to be either of those things. Obviously, you need to take the time to build the campaigns and the programs and whatnot, and it needs to be taken seriously. But once you have those markers in place, well, your results are going to improve a lot and it's going to get a lot easier. You're only going to have one chance to make a first impression here, and by using what you know about your contacts, you can successfully segment and really target your messages. You have to agree that this is a much better approach than just sending messages out and hoping that somehow, some way, somewhere, they land with somebody, right? We're going to touch on all this and more, so let's jump in here and get started. So first, let's talk a little about improving email engagement with segmentation. As marketing techniques have evolved, we've learned some important things about not just who we talk to, but also about how we speak to them. Thus, the rising popularity of segmentation. But to successfully increase engagement, we have to segment in ways that will be meaningful to the contact and to us. So first, we need to understand best how we can create the best segments. Guess what this means? Well, it's a little bit of work. Think about how you can break your list into smaller, more meaningful segments. What are relevant markers that could put one contact into a list? Well, some key demographics that you can explore are things like job title. Right? Obviously, your message to a mid-level manager is going to be a very different message than an email that you send to the CEO of a company or the owner of a company, board chair, what have you. Company type, right? Different types of companies and industries might find additional benefits from your product. If you can tailor those messages, you can speak directly to the features and the benefits that are most important to that audience. Previous engagement, longevity, right? I talked about this a little bit earlier, activity tracking. Because you can segment based on activity, and by finding these segments, you can reach out and speak specifically to those populations with messages that suit their previous interactions with you, with your company, and your organization. While this seems like it might be a small thing, being able to address these contacts with knowledge about their journey so far can be a huge advantage. There are plenty of more demographics. I could really go on in a whole 15-20-minute video on just the demographic markers that we should be looking at. But I think that you get the idea here. Once you've determined what you want to know about your audience, you can then collect the data to enable segmentation. This will work best if you remember that this is a conversation, not just a one-sided transaction. We're not shouting at somebody. The purpose here is to get them to talk back to us. We have to keep reminding ourselves that the best, most relevant, most well-crafted messages are going to fail if they're not sent to the right audience. The message and the audience should work together to make better and more meaningful engagement possible. Again, that two-sided conversation. So pair those messages with your great lists, and don't be afraid to evaluate what's going on and see what's happening, and then test it again. Now let's talk a little bit about how we segment existing contacts with those lists and tags and different things like that. Often our contacts are going to segment themselves by how they respond to your email campaigns, and this is exactly how it's supposed to work. And now you're going to need to apply some of these same filters and tags to your existing contacts, so it's time to get to work a little bit. If you haven't been segmenting with your older or those existing contacts, well, now's the time to start looking through your list of contacts and make notes about where and how you can best assign these contacts to a list or segment, right? We're talking about how best to use this kind of pause of the holiday season. Well, this is a great way to do it. Chances are you've got some knowledge about these contacts already, so you're going to be able to confidently move them into a category of some sort that's going to be able to help you get the best message to them. Once you have all your contacts assigned to some smaller lists, well, now you can even further segment those folks and at the end of the day, get even more targeted with the messages that you're sending to them. I know it sounds like it's a pain, but trust me, it's going to be super helpful. A tag here is an additional way to segment across multiple lists, right? In Mission Suite, for example, we have our groups, and then we can tag inside of those groups, kind of like sub-segments, right? For example, if you have a list of contacts you met at a trade show, and you want to send them a note saying, hey, it was nice to meet you at the so on, whatever it's called, trade show, and within that list you have some CEOs, some managers, maybe some kind of lower level workers and whatnot. You might segment the CEOs and those managers into different lists, but now you can actually just assign a tag to those contacts to send them the relevant messages even though they're in different segments. Right? They can all be, maybe they're in two different lists, but they're tagged with the same trade show name, or maybe they're in the trade show list, but they're tagged according to their titles. However you do it is going to be up to you, right? Obviously, yes, it requires some front-end work and management. There are ways that you can make it easier. I'm happy to share those with you, but it can help get the best messages in front of the right contacts, right? Again, this is something that Mission Suite does. Right, you can divide, segment, tag any contact as you're designing your email campaigns. Right, this is kind of core CRM 101. With your contact list, you can dissect the data then and classify a connection in a bunch of different ways. This can make your campaign seem much more personal, much more targeted, and much more focused on the one person. So it doesn't feel like I'm just getting a blast email from you, but rather a direct email, and it feels a little bit better. And you can, of course, stay ahead of the game, right? You can add in some automation. You can do those different things because I promise you, odds are your competition's not doing this yet, but they will. So better to start doing it now. Let's talk about creating custom segments through your segmentation dashboard. The point of segmentation is to use the tools that you have to stop treating each customer as if they're all the same. Of course, our end goal for contacts might be the same or at least similar, but the journey is often going to be unique. Right? Using the tools in your dashboard can help you to increase engagement and help you make some critical decisions. And this is most easily done with a CRM, of course, right? Wouldn't be talking about it if it weren't the case. Your segmentation dashboard is going to have all the tools that you need to help segment those lists, and as we've talked about, but you can also use this information to create custom lists and segments that are going to suit your individual needs. Right? A lot of times this is done inside of a CRM. Sometimes it's done on a spreadsheet. Sometimes it's done on a whiteboard, right? And there's a whiteboard over there, by the way. But however you're going to do it, it's a hugely important thing to do. Before you dive in, of course, you're going to have to get some work out of the way. So think about the different segments within those segments that you're going to have. It's an excellent chance to drill down on some things that can help you engage that audience. For example, if you want to make a list of people who would be most interested in a particular feature or benefit of your product or service, like people that might be most interested in our referral bench opportunities, right? So the things that we do to help professional service providers generate more referrals, this is a very specific segment. Right? And it might be a little too specific for an entire segment of the population, right? It's not something that I'm going to send out to my entire list necessarily, but it can be worth an email or outreach. True, this isn't a group that's been identified with data, but it will at the very least give me an audience by which I can evaluate my messaging. Right? So if I know where all my consultants are, all my accountants, lawyers are, what have you, right? I can see how that messaging is landing with them. In this type of an instance, remember that this is you segmenting your list, not your contacts segmenting themselves. We're going to talk about that next, but remember that this is you making an educated assumption about your audience. So your results are probably going to vary. So again, don't be afraid to test, measure, refine, and test again. Now we get to talk a little bit about some ways that your contacts might be segmenting themselves. Obviously, we've all seen sign-up forms. I'm sure that you've filled out many, maybe even with your real email address. Who knows? We've all seen these things, right? We've all seen them on a website. We've all seen them on social media. They're all over the place. We know this, right? It's the way that we get downloadable information, and there's a lot of great downloadable content out there. If you don't already know this, it's an excellent contact collection form. It gives us the best way to collect new leads, and it's a great way to have your contacts identify themselves as they're joining your list, right? It helps them to sort themselves. Think about it. If you can run a targeted promotion to new and existing contacts and ask for an email address, your CRM can automatically place them into a segmented list and even potentially assign a tag to them. Then, once your campaign is complete, you have a list that's already segmented. It's beautiful. It's obviously extremely useful, and there's a lot of reasons for that. As you plan this type of campaign, make sure that you've done your homework in advance, right? Have clear goals in mind, and make sure that you've set your KPIs so that you can actually track your results and meet and hopefully even succeed those goals. So pairing segmentation with automated emails. This is one of my favorite things that I get to talk about is automation. Right? I don't want to go too much further down the segmentation rabbit hole. There's a lot here that we can go into, but I will say this. You can continue to segment your contacts through their entire buyer's journey, including emails and communications that are targeted to the listed segments that you have. Once you have a segmented list, you can start to send out messages that will land, and you can still ask questions to have contacts further segment themselves. The significant thing to remember, and I know that I've said this before, is that this is a two-way conversation. Again, your goal here is to get them to engage in some way, because that's the only way automation is actually going to help you. If your contact indicates to you somehow that they have an interest different from their previous segment, in that case, you and your CRM should be able to automatically move them from one list to another and from one segment to another as a result. The best part of a helpful CRM is that piece of automation that's going to save you a lot of time and it's going to save you a lot of money. Trust me when I tell you, it's going to save you a lot of headache too. So with Mission Suite, for example, we can trigger an email based on our client's actions on the last email that you sent, right? So if I send you email A and say, hey, click this link or this link, and you click on this link, then I'm going to put you in a different list than if you were to click the other one. You can customize the entire journey. Before, you had to keep track of what email a contact was getting or download a list of contacts that clicked on a link or what have you, and it took a lot of time, right? And it was kind of annoying, but it was worth it, right? Because again, this automation really helps us segment list, and we know that it's important. Now we can automate all of that. Good news is that as long as the client or the contact is actually engaging with you in some way, then you can continue to engage with them in these meaningful messages. And the benefit of automation is that you don't have to do it manually. As a result, obviously, you probably already know this, you have the time to reach out personally where you need to network, and you can even be available for the other 1,000 tasks that I'm sure you have on your list, just like I do. Okay, so let's recap here. Segmentation, good for so many reasons. Not only can you deliver better messages, but you can also lean into specific needs and specific interests of your audience without alienating any one part of the list. You can practically talk to each segment of your audience in the way that will be most beneficial for both of you, and your marketing plan without the use of segmentation is not doing all that it can do. We are conditioned through everything, right? We're conditioned to think that bigger is better, right? My bigger list is going to be better. If I have 10,000 people, it's better than if I only have 1,000. And there's some truth to that. But when it comes to your list of contacts, your marketing list, really we need to change our thought process to smaller is smarter, right? Because think about it. You can either send a generic message to an entire group who may or may not be interested and, may or may not be responding to you and damaging your reputation with email providers, or you can craft messages designed to reach specific groups. And while it might seem more straightforward just to send one big message, it's going to be more effective, it's going to be better received when you target and tailor a message to a smaller group. This really is the best way to increase engagement and to start to connect with your audience. And overall, the email gods are watching, and it lets them know that the people that you're sending emails to actually like you. Best of all, if you're segmenting your list using some sort of a CRM, something like Mission Suite, of course, you can easily include automation with that, and you're going to see results, and you'll have time for the important things that you need to do. And of course, if you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, definitely reach out, drop a note in the comments, and let me know, because I'd love to talk more about it. Hey, I hope you got something out of this video. I personally appreciate being back out of the basement and back in my office, although I will say that I think we had more engagement on my basement video than we've had in a long time. So maybe I should find other basements too. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think it sounds a little better. I think it probably looks a little bit better too. But if you did, let us know, right? Give us a like, give us a share, drop a note in the comments. Just let us know that you're engaging from it, right? That also helps us with the whole YouTube algorithm, because it lets YouTube know that we're providing valuable content for you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so that you're notified when we post new videos. And while you're at it, check out the videos that are on your screen, and we will see you next time around. Cheers.